So what's my genetic background? What are some of my favorite French traditions? Or even what it's like dating in France? Today I answer about 20 of your questions you either ask me on YouTube or over on my Instagram. So let's French it! I'm going to read the question out of my phone. The first question I got was one of the questions I got the most on all my YouTube videos. So if you don't know, I am French. I live in France right now, but I did live in the US for about 5 years. So of course a lot of questions about where I was in the US, where did I live, because I did say in a few videos that I did live in Pennsylvania, but I didn't say where. So a lot of questions were, what part of Pennsylvania did you live in? So I did live in northern PA, in Erie, so next to Presque Isle, for example, if you know kind of the Erie area. So I did live in northern PA next to the Erie Lake and all the stuff. I didn't choose where I was going to go in the US the first year I went in the US because I was an exchange student, so you don't really get to pick where you go except if you want to pay more. I didn't want to pay more, so it's kind of the organization just picked a family for me, and that family happened to live in Erie, PA, and that's where I got placed. So number 2, hey Manon, when you went to restaurants, what were your thoughts? Comparison of styles of food, how our drinks are served with ice. Is there any big difference in regards of grocery stores? So about restaurants, there are a lot of different things about restaurants. It was pretty different first because of the service. Like I said in a few videos, we don't really have customer service like in the US because our waiters usually have a full salary, so we don't usually tip except if the service is really good, then maybe we will give a tip, but most people don't tip our waiters. So the service usually is different, especially if you go to Paris. You probably will have a bit of a culture shock there because people are not as smiley and enthusiastic about serving you, and they are not very quick. Like sometimes you will have to wait a long time versus in the US usually where you walk in the restaurant and in a few minutes you sit down and then you already have your drink, and you know it goes pretty fast. In France, especially in Paris, it probably will take more time, especially because it's pretty busy and the customer service is just not the same. Other things about restaurants are like food portions, because usually when you go to a French restaurant, the portions are a little smaller than in the US. So a lot of time, like I didn't know what I wanted to order, and I took a lot of small size most of the time just because I was scared it was going to be too big. Like a lot of time when I had fries or something like that and I was for a medium, it would be like XXL in France, like it would be so huge. So yeah, food portions are usually pretty different, and in the US it's a lot bigger. Like if you compare like McDonald's drinks, for example, I've seen quite a few videos about that, like McDonald's around the world, and it's pretty different because like sometimes our let me think. Your guys, like in the US, if you take like a small drink, usually it's our medium, sometimes even large in France, so it's really different. If you talk about really like American food, it's not the same than French food. So in the US, for example, we had a lot of like big steaks, sweet potato casserole, cornbread, corn casserole, a lot of things with corn, which we don't really have in France. So the next part of the question is about the differences between grocery stores. And there are quite a few as well. One of the big differences is that most American grocery stores are open 24 hours, which we don't have in France. So if you come to France, don't think you can go shop at like 11 p.m., 2 p.m., 1 p.m. You cannot do that. Most stores close around 9 p.m. I believe, or something like that, pretty early. So you won't have that, and on Sundays we are closed most of the time. So it's not the same store hours. So that's one pretty big culture shock. Another thing was how big, again, because a lot of things are bigger in the US. Grocery stores usually were a lot bigger in the US, and you will find a lot of things. We have some stores in France as well where you can pretty much find anything like food and clothes and stuff like that, but usually they are a lot smaller anyway. And in the US they are really huge, like you can get lost in them because it's so big. And yeah, so it maybe is that, and also what you find, of course, a lot of things that you find in the US you will not be able to find in France, and vice versa. So yeah, I think there are a lot of differences between both type of grocery stores. Next one, what are some places in America you would like to travel to that you've never been to before? I just want to road trip in the US, so again, like if when I get enough money, when I get enough time, I would love to do that again. So I love natural landscapes more than cities. Like I love to go to cities, it's fun. Like I want to go back to New York City, maybe live there for a few months, it will be fun. But it's not what I enjoy the most. What I enjoyed the most was like going to Zion National Park, Bryce Canyon, that kind of stuff, because it's just so beautiful and you can hike, and I think it's just a lot more fun and fulfilling. So where I want to go next in the US, where I never been before, is for example Yellowstone. I never been to the Yellowstone National Park. I would love to go there. A lot of natural landscape, natural national park and state parks that I would love to go to. I already been to Sedona, but like a lot of people told me in a few videos I made, like I didn't get to really visit all the area of Sedona. So things like that I would like to do more. What is your genetic background? So I am almost fully French. Both of my parents are French. However, my grandpa from my dad's side is from Algeria, and from my mom's side we have some roots in Germany. I have family in Germany. However, my grandparents also are French from her side, so it's a little bit deeper, like further in the family, but we do have family in Germany. I will say French, German and Algerian are kind of in my roots and in my genetic background. How is bread or bread and butter eaten with a knife and fork? Okay, so that was under one of my videos I made about differences, I think, or things you shouldn't do in France, and I talked about how in France usually most of the things are eaten with a fork and a knife, versus in the US a lot of people eat things with their hands, for example like chicken wings, pizza, fries, all that stuff. And so I think that's probably what they are referring to. But to answer that question, most of the time, like if you're in your family, like really in your house, so if you're just with like your parents, you know, or your wife or whoever you live with, you usually cut it with your hand and eat it with your hand. However, usually when you have people over, friends over, grandparents or other people that usually don't live with you but come to visit you, usually you will cut your bread with a knife. Why? Because most of the time it's more respectful, it's cleaner because you don't use your hand, and it cuts better the bread instead of like shredding it in a bunch of little pieces. You can cut it pretty nice and neat. So most of the time with people coming to your house, or even if you go to a restaurant or something, you will use a knife. But if you're really at home, just with your nuclear family, you will use your hands. Next one, Ravenclaw asks, how did you cope with homesickness? So I didn't get that much homesick, so I got pretty lucky with that. I think I was older than some people that when they go abroad, like I was 17 years old, I believe. Some people were actually 15, 16, so maybe it will be a lot harder when you're younger. Also, I had the chance to make friends pretty quickly there, so it helps so much. Like if you don't really make friends, it's really hard. But I did get the chance to make a lot of friends there. My first year in the US, which was a lot of exchange students, so not Americans. Of course I had a few American friends, but most of them were exchange students. But then when I went to college, all my friends were American. I joined a sorority to help me out with that, because otherwise it was kind of hard to meet people just during class. So during my sorority time, it helped me so much, meet so many people, and that's where I met some of my best American friends. So I just want to say that I didn't get that homesick. However, I did get a bit homesick, especially at the beginning, my first year, just because it was really hard when you go to another country. You don't speak the language, you don't usually eat what they eat, you don't have the same rules, and just everything that changes so much in like a short amount of time, and it's really hard to adapt to so many things at the same time. So just to set things up, I was 17 years old, I went to a host family, so it was not my family anymore. They were pretty different from my family that I had at home in France, because of course in France they knew me, they were my family, so they allowed me to do a lot more things. When I was in the US, you know, they weren't my parents, they didn't want anything to happen to me, so they were a little more strict about things. Like in France I could go out until like whatever time I wanted, and when I went in the US they would tell me, okay, you have a curfew at 10 p.m. So that was really rough in a sense, because it just seems like your freedom is kind of taken away from you. So that was weird. It's weird, but the food actually influences you so much. Like if you're not able to eat what you usually eat, it's kind of frustrating, and it's kind of like you miss home. Food makes you feel at home sometimes. So when I was in the US and I didn't have all my French food anymore, it really felt weird, and sometimes I just wanted a French meal, and it was just something that kind of bothered me. Other things was kind of like missing my friends and my family, obviously, but more than missing them, I felt like it was more like missing on what they're doing together. Like I was seeing like family gatherings and I felt like I was missing out on the event, or I would see my friends hanging out and I was feeling like I was missing on so many memories they were making together. So it's not just missing them, my relationship with them, but it's missing, like I felt like I was missing out on what they were doing and that they were bonding without me, kind of. It's weird. Honestly, how to get out of homesickness is really get your life together wherever you go. Don't think about what you left behind. Try to make your life as much fun as you can in in the country you're going to. So for me in the US, it was try to make American friends, try to go to American events, and also try to just stay positive and think like, I'm so lucky to do that. So many of my friends wanted to travel either to the US or somewhere else, but a lot of people don't get the chance to because they go to college, they don't have the money, they don't have the time, and I had that. So I just try to stay positive and be like, I'm so lucky, and probably in a year I will look back and be so grateful for everything. So just be happy about it and make friends, I guess. Next one is, aside from Paris, which French city would you recommend for travelers to visit? So of course Paris is awesome, it's beautiful, a lot of people go to Paris, but like the person kind of insinuate Gustave, there are so many more things to do in France and not go just to Paris, I guess. So I have so many, I don't know what to choose, but I will recommend to go to the Mont Saint-Michel, which is so beautiful. And on that side of the west coast of France, you will have a lot of cities that are awesome. You have Honfleur, you have Deauville, you have a lot of different cities over there. You can go a little more south and go to La Rochelle. I don't know, there are so many beautiful things to do. I probably maybe will do a video just about that, but there are so many other places you should go in France that are so beautiful. Another part of France that I personally love is more on the east coast, more like next to Germany. So it's the Alsace region. So it's a region that was French, then German, then French. So you have a lot of German influence, I guess, also. And the look of the houses are just beautiful. It's like wooden sticks. No, you don't say wooden, I don't know how you call it. But the house is like a bunch of different colors, and then you see the wood also from the house, and it's just beautiful. I would just insert picture because you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so many places to see. Do you think you will stay in France, or might you live in the US again? You are always welcome back. Well, thank you so much. So yes, I will probably go back to the US to visit for sure. To live in the US, I don't know honestly. If I have an opportunity to go live in the US for a few months, maybe a year, maybe I will, depending on what's going on in my life in France, but I probably will because I do love the US and I would love to live there again a little bit. But for the long run, I probably wouldn't because I love France and I think it's the easier thing to do is live in France just because I have all the French nationality benefits. But yeah, if I have the opportunity just to do it for a few years or a few months, I probably will, but otherwise probably just visit. Next question, I just thought it was so funny because in one of my videos about American food, I talked about chicken dip, buffalo chicken dip. And I thought it was like an all-known American thing, like in the entire US, because when I was in Pennsylvania, like everyone knew about it, like everyone loved it most of the time, and like every time we had like a family gathering or friend gathering, like when we had sometimes sorority events, people would bring buffalo chicken dip. So I thought it was like an American thing, but actually so many people don't even know what it is. So maybe just Eastern US or even just PA, I don't know. Let me know in the comments where you're from and if you know or even tried buffalo chicken dip, but it's so good. It's like this thing, it's like a dip with like chicken, buffalo sauce, and it's just so good. I love it and I miss it very much because we don't really do that in France. Next question is, did you get to go to a college football game? Yes, I did. I think once or twice at my university in the US, I did go to football games. I love the atmosphere. I think it was so fun to have that pre-game before the football game where everyone gather and you drink some beers and you just have fun with your friends, and then you go to the game and then you get some fried food and you're with all your friends and everyone is screaming and enjoy the game. So the atmosphere is so fun and I really enjoy doing it. However, I just didn't understand anything about football. Like a few people kind of explained it to me, but I was kind of still confused. Also, I just didn't like really watching the game itself because I thought it was so slow, like people will run. for like a few minutes, stop, for like more than they run, and then they start again. So I'm not saying it's something like the game sucks, like I just don't really get it, and I think it's kind of slow. So I prefer to watch basketball. I think it's just more dynamic and I enjoy it better. But the atmosphere of the football game, however, is really fun. Next one is, how did you like our French fries? So if you don't know, actually French fries are, there is a little debate if they're for France or for Belgium, but I'm more likely they're from Belgium. But I actually enjoyed, it depends, like fries in general, you could find like really good one in France or in the US, but McDonald's fries are so much better in the US. Like they are a lot more salty, which I love. In France usually they're not very salty, so I don't really like them. So I prefer a McDonald's fries in the US. Next one is by Alexander. What are you doing for a living now? Is your employment different from what it was before COVID-19? Spread into France. So I am a UX, UI designer, so I design websites, a web designer if you will, and I still have 1 more year of school. I do work study, so like I have classes 1 week, then I work for 3 weeks, and it continues on like that. So I have 1 more year to get my degree, and yeah, so it's really fun, I love it. So is unemployment different? Yes, it is, but not so much for me. So in general, unemployment is so different just because with everything going on, there are a lot of people that are actually can't run their business, especially stores, bars, restaurants. It's really rough. And a lot of people sometimes have a hard time finding jobs depending on what you're doing. So I have friends that do like more events. So of course right now it sucks. They can't really do that. Some people that work in museums, of course right now it's not working. So a lot of things are really harder for most people. So my job actually didn't really get affected by it, which I'm pretty lucky for, just because I work with online stores. So during COVID, they actually even worked better than before because people couldn't go shopping outside, so I had to shop online. So it works even better during COVID. So no, my job didn't really get affected, at least not in a bad way, maybe even in a good way. So next question, this video is getting long. Do you speak any more languages in addition to French and English? So no, I do not speak fluently other languages. I know a tiny, very tiny bit of German just because I have roots in Germany, like I said. My mom speaks German pretty fluently, and my grandfather even more. So I do have people that speak German in my family. However, I don't really speak German just because growing up, most of my friends wanted to study Spanish, so I wanted to study Spanish, but my family kind of forced me to do German, so I didn't want to learn it. And then after school, now I just would love to be able to speak German, but I didn't study when I was in school, so that kind of sucked. That's kind of my fault. Are there any other countries you would like to live in? So like I said, I probably would like to live maybe again in the US for just a short amount of time. I would love to live maybe a bit in Germany, maybe in England, and then we'll see. I mean, I would love to live in another country again just for a short amount of time, coming back always to France, but I would love to try to live in other countries for a bit. I just don't know which one yet. Who knows? Next question is pretty interesting. Is it easier or harder to make friends as a foreigner? Actually pretty interesting is because it's one of the questions I think exchange students or people moving abroad ask themselves the most. The answer is, at first it seems like it's easier just because you're a foreigner, you're different, so people kind of are interested by you and ask you so many questions. So when I was in the US, I will talk a little bit and people will like notice my accent, so they will be like, oh, where are you from? And I'll say France, and you know, all the questions about Paris will flow in. And so many questions I will get, and yeah, so they will be so interested by me. But then actually it gets really harder just because once they get that kind of interesting thing out of you at first, then they don't get as much interested because they already know you answer all their questions, and now they go back with their actual friends and you know their routine. So it's actually a lot harder to make friends as a foreigner. Except if you make friends with other foreigners, then it's pretty easy. But if you try to make friends with actual native from wherever you're going, so for me, making friends with American people was kind of rough at the beginning, just because it's kind of hard to speak English when you don't know how to speak English. So if you don't speak the language, it's going to be really hard. And then you don't really know the culture because you didn't grow up there, so there are a lot of references, jokes, sarcasm that you don't get. However, you can do it. I actually made a lot of American friends, but the key elements to it is you will have to do the work because they won't do it for you. What's dating like in France? So I feel like it's a bit different than in the US. For example, at the beginning, like when you're kind of looking for someone in the US, if you're dating, you can have different dates with different people and it's okay, it's pretty accepted, like a lot of people do that. And I'm talking really like people you know, like you meet at college or high school or wherever and you go on a date with them. Some people go on different dates with different people and it's fine, as long as it's not getting serious. And once you kind of really like one specific person, then you don't see anyone else and you start being official and you're dating that specific person. But in France, if you go on dates with like people you know, so like college friends, a college girl you met or a college guy, like it's probably really not like nice to have different dates with different people. Like you're supposed to only date one person. Like you like someone, so you go on a date with them and you see how it goes, if it works or if it doesn't. If it doesn't, of course, then you can go on date with other people. Except with Tinder and all that, these applications that come in now, because it's not people you actually know and it's kind of the game of people using Tinder, then there will be like, you know, dating different people. However, if it's people you actually know, you're not supposed to date different people, if that makes sense. The rest is pretty much the same. I feel like it's nothing like crazy different. This one is, can we start an apero trend in the US? Yes, we can, of course. So if you don't really know, an aperitif in France, usually we say apero. It's a little gathering with your friends or your family, and you drink some alcohol and you like eat a bunch of little things. So we don't really do that in the US. I feel like you have pre-games and stuff like that where you have gatherings and people drink, but it's not the same at all. Like apero is really more chill. Like usually you will drink something like wine or, you know, something like that, and then you have just little things to eat, and usually it's like just hanging out with your friends and just talking pretty much. And you can have an apero before going to a movie or before doing an event or anything. And I feel like it's a bit less common in the US. When we had like this kind of pre-game, I feel like people call it pre-game, where you are drinking a bit with your friends before going to an event. Usually like you drink more and like you have beers and stuff like that, and not little nice things to eat, more like sugary or like kind of greasy dips and stuff. Versus in France, an apero is kind of more, I guess, classy, you could say, where you don't drink that much necessarily, you just drink a bit, just a lot of talking and pretty nice little appetizers and stuff to eat. Okay, next question is kind of a lot more deep than the other ones. Is what's your goal in life? I want to for sure travel a lot if I can and when I can. I love to travel. I feel like it's when I'm the most happy, like when I travel. Some of my best memories were when I was traveling, either with my parents or with my friends. I just felt so fulfilled and really happy and excited every day when I travel to be able to see new things. So yeah, I for sure really want to travel, try to do countries I've never been to, and go back to the ones I've been to but didn't do everything, like the US. I've been to the US for 5 years, but I didn't travel everywhere, and I just really want to do more road trips and go to Yellowstone, maybe go to a bit in California. I've never been to the state of California. I want to go to Texas. I want to do a lot of things like that. And then another goal, of course, is YouTube. I love doing videos on YouTube, and I really would love to grow my YouTube channel. I'm pretty bad at it just because I go to school, I work, and during the week I don't really have that time. The only time I really have time to film a video is on weekends. However, weekends, like, I'm someone who is really very social and I love to be with people, so on weekends I'm always with my friends. Sometimes also I have family events to go to, so it's really hard for me to find time. I don't know, I really want to try to grow my YouTube channel. I'm going to try my best. I want to try to post once a week and grow it. So if you don't already, please subscribe to my channel. It makes me really happy, and share it with your friends, your family, everyone you know, and yeah, help me out. That would be awesome. But yeah, so I guess my goals were more like, for now, YouTube, doing great in my job also, like a UX UI designer, and then more long term will be to travel a lot, try a lot of activities, and just have a fulfilling life, I guess. I don't know. Thank you for this video. Thank you for everyone who participated and asked me questions on Instagram and on YouTube. It makes it a lot easier when people actually answer when I ask questions, so thank you so much. And also, I hope I answered some of your most asked questions. I hope you got the answers you needed. I didn't answer everything I got, especially because some are just personal and it's just just not what I want to share on YouTube. I still hope you really enjoy it, and I will see you next week for another video. Salut!